Hello everyone! So RE9 finally got a reveal, and with that reveal, Dusk Golem, pretty much like the most well-known horror game leaker, has summarized all of his supposed leaks for the upcoming game. Some new and some old, and honestly, the more I hear from him, the less I trust him. So I wanted to go over his little summary of RE9 leaks and look at each one through like a skeptical lens, because I'm just a bit tired of people taking what he says and just running with it and instantly considering it true simply because he's been right in a lot of the time in the past. But what people really don't even talk about is that he's been wrong many times as well. Probably just as much as he's been right, if not more. I made a whole video about that like a year ago, so check that out if you don't believe me. But back to the RE9 leaks and info. A lot of this stuff is either a safe bet, educated guess, or just completely unverifiable. Like he gave some insight on the development of the game, and that stuff can never really be confirmed, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into the leaks. So I'm going off this Reddit post on r/gaming leaks and rumors, but he posted this verbatim on his Twitter, just so you guys know. So the first thing he says is that Jill plays no major role in the game. This is an example of a very safe bet, considering they haven't done anything with Jill since RE5 chronologically, so you would honestly just kind of assume she isn't in the next game. Also specifically, he says she plays no major role in the game, keyword major, just in case she is in the game in some capacity to cover his ass. Because if he just said Jill is not in the game period and she maybe shows up in a cutscene or something, then that looks bad on his credibility. He also says RE9 was originally a co-op game featuring Jill that took place in Singapore or something, and this version of the game was scrapped in 2020 or 2021. This is completely unverifiable and will likely stay that way. That kind of goes for all the development info he gives. We will never be able to prove him wrong or right on that stuff because we don't work at Capcom, obviously, so yeah. So this to me just sounds like him trying to pad his leaker stats just to make him look like he knows the inner workings of Capcom better. But what do I know? This could be completely true. I just doubt it. That's all I'm saying. Leon is the main character. This is probably true, and I say that because if this one in particular was completely false, I think the hit to his reputation would just be too much, so I don't think he would say this unless he was sure of it, and it kind of adds up because they've already shown Raccoon City. He also says it's the conclusion of Leon's story, which if Leon is the main character, I would assume it'd be the end of his story considering he's pretty old, and it's been stated in other RE media that he's tired of fighting and stuff like that, so yeah. So weirdly, he never once mentions Raccoon City. At least I couldn't find him saying that anywhere, and that is very fishy to me. You could say, maybe he didn't want to spoil it, right? Well, if that's the case, then why spoil the return of Leon? Isn't that a much bigger spoiler than saying the game takes place in Raccoon City? Like, that's weird to me. So he said previously that the game would be third person. As I'm sure all of you know by now, this is true and untrue. They've confirmed that the game is first and third person, but I believe there's a problem with this statement. So a lot of the content creators got to watch a demo of the game at Summer Game Fest, and this demo wasn't allowed to be recorded or anything, but they were allowed to talk about it. And I watched multiple creators' impressions on this demo they saw, and one of them was from Yong Yeah. He's kind of like a news channel, and something I heard him say that I didn't hear anyone else say was that when they were in the menu selecting first or third person, he said the game says that first person is actually the recommended point of view to play the game in.
With Resident Evil 9, the option to switch between the two will be there at launch from the outset. Though, in the options, it does say when you look at the first person option in the camera options menu, it says first person is recommended. So that is the ideal experience if you want the biggest scares, but if you just like third person Resident Evil gameplay, then that option is there.
This to me could mean that they most likely developed the game in first person first and then worked on the third person later, which makes sense because RE7 and RE8 were both first person and they're both the mainline game. So if this is the case, again, it could not be, but if it is the case, then how on earth would Dusk Golem have heard that the game is third person only? You get what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't add up. I think he said that because the Rose DLC in RE8 was third person, despite the base game being first person. Now, this could be because of the mannequin part in that DLC where you have to have them on your screen to stop them from moving. That could be the reason it was third person, but I'm thinking Dusk Golem took that DLC as a sign that the series moving forward would likely be third person. That's just my theory. So he says RE9 is a reinvention of the series, and this does add up with what Capcom says on the website for the game, where they say this is a new era of survival horror. So that does make sense. He said it utilizes RE Engine tech advancements, which is also what it says on the webpage for the game, so this is correct. He then says the game was originally open world, but now isn't, and that it has big areas but isn't a sandbox. This is a safe bet, in my opinion. RE8 already was going in this direction with the big areas and stuff, so I think this is another educated guess. Plus, think about it. Going open world would be a massive shift for the franchise, and after all this development time, do you think Capcom wants to risk fans not liking this game? It makes sense that they wouldn't commit to a full open world. And plus, if Dusk Golem said the game was open world, and it turned out it wasn't, that would be a huge hit to his reputation. The game will likely have 2 playable characters. This is likely a legitimate leak because of just, you know, the previous Leon leak and everything I said about that, and it's Raccoon City is involved, and they've only shown Grace so far, not Leon, so I think this is pointing toward this being a true leak. This could still be false, but I think this one is true. He also says that there will only be one campaign. This is another extremely safe bet, considering almost every RE game in recent times has had only one campaign, regardless of if it had more than one playable character or not. Like RE3, it had Carlos and Jill, and it was still only had one campaign, unlike Resident Evil 2. RE9 has the biggest budget and longest development in the series. Again, you'd expect that considering the length of time between RE8 and RE9, and this is also completely unverifiable. Seems like more leaker stat padding to me. He says they are trying to push above expectations and become the leader of the horror genre once again. This is quite obvious. It's their newest project that has taken the longest. I'd hope they try to push past expectations. The game will tone down the action and amp up the horror. This is debatable if it's a guess or a legitimate leak. On one hand, the last 2 games, not chronologically, but in order of release, have been very action focused, so it wouldn't surprise me if Capcom wanted to go back to the more spooky, less shooty route. But on the other hand, one might expect them to just keep the amount of action the same. So yeah, I'd say this one could be a real leak, but could also not be. Strong gothic atmosphere, very witchy. Educated guess, RE8 was the same way. He says this game will end the story that started with RE1. So there's nothing to really hint at this or suggest this currently, so this could be true. We'll just have to wait and see for this one. So that's all of his leaks. You can make up your own mind, but I believe he's doing a lot more guessing than most people think. But for all I know, he could be right about all of this. And if that ends up being the case, I will eat my words. But I just want people to look at his supposed leaks with more skepticism. That's all. I mean, the r/gaming leaks and rumors subreddit has almost unanimously stopped trusting him. And I don't think it was like that back in RE8 when that came out. So I think people are waking up. But again, make up your own mind. But that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.